Hey guys, welcome back to episode 6 of FormuLATTE with Mr. Eric Williams.
Mr. Eric Williams graduated from Montclair State University with a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology.
Hi Mr. Williams, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks. Happy to be here.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
So, could you tell us a little bit about growing up, high school journey, just what you wanted to do as a high schooler?
Sure. Yeah, so I went to high school in Randolph, which is next to Morristown. Go Rams. When I was in high school, at the time, Randolph was a really strong academic school, offered a lot. And so I was really given a lot of exposure to different areas. I found business really was kind of where I sort of gravitated towards. However, I didn't really have clear direction of what I wanted to do when I was in high school. I played basketball all through high school. At one point, thought I was going to go to college to play basketball. If you look at me, you can probably tell I'm not that tall, and I probably don't really look like a basketball player. But high school was great. Going through the whole college process and preparing for college, there wasn't a lot of clear direction, right? And I see a big difference in contrast to what is available today for students and the systems and the technology and the platforms that are available to you. Going through high school, when you were getting ready to go to college, you physically had to fill out every single application by hand, and you had to write every single essay. And now I feel like you guys kind of have it easy, right?
The Common App, right?
The Common App.
Yeah. So, great experience in high school. The other thing is it was a fairly diverse school to a certain extent, and I think that really opened up a lot of respect and understanding of different cultures and different people and different viewpoints. That really kind of helped me as I started getting into to college.
Right, yeah, and you see a lot of these things where it's like you play a lot of sports and you have these different things. So what was your goal? Like, what was your dream when you were in high school?
Yeah, I mean, look, I came up during the time of Michael Jordan, so I thought I was everything basketball.
I got one question. Who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron?
Yeah, Michael Jordan.
Okay. I'm going to have to take
That's
this
a whole other
aside.
podcast. Yeah, no. I thought I was going to be a basketball player. In high school, I ended up working quite a bit. So my parents really instilled a strong work ethic, exposed me to a lot of work opportunities, some of them not by choice. I was understood how to really sort of enter the workforce at a pretty young age.
Right.
So, yeah.
I mean, I see a lot of similarities. Like you were talking a little bit about the differences between the opportunities you had available, of course, very different. But I see a lot of similarities between, of course, like people, they play sports. They're really focused on school. I mean, it's definitely, the culture itself might have changed from back then to now. But I think a lot of the activities that are done are quite similar. I think you're right. And look, obviously, nothing's changed. People still get into, their clubs and they get into their sports. They lean in like yourselves, right, to really sort of help advance and drive understanding of sort of clarity of path, which is what you're talking about here today. I will say, though, in sports, it really gave me an opportunity to really understand how teams work together and how important teamwork is. And really it comes down to collaboration, right? And so as you're going through high school, as you're going through college, those themes continue time and time again, really learning how to collaborate. There's always a reset that happens no matter whether you're going through high school, through college, university, or into the workforce. There needs to be a period of understanding. And then you sort of adjust, and then you sort of find your space, right?
Right.
I have a leader that I work with now, and I'm not trying to jump ahead, but the CEO of the company I work with, Cielo Talent, Marissa Geist, she always talks about leading with intention, and so anytime that you can have clarity of intention, I think you're going to be set up for success.
Right. And on the topic of intention, you were also talking about how you were kind of like forced into like career-oriented activities.
Yes.
And you were also like stressing teamwork a lot.
Yeah.
So how was it? And like, what do you think are the benefits of career-oriented activities?
So I always say get started. You can't do anything unless you actually start something. Career awareness, career activities, career development activities, I think that they really serve a great purpose. They start to give you a lot of the tools that you need that are going to be transferable into various different fields and industries. It really prepares you well for what you're going to be faced with time and time again, whether again going through new classes, trying to figure out what you want to study, what you want to do when you get out of college and into the workforce. There's not one single answer, and there's not one single necessary career path, but it helps you to start to set goals and have an awareness of what it's going to take in order to get where you want to be.
Okay. That does make sense. And I think it doesn't just have to be career oriented activities that show you that path. As you said, you played sports in high school. I think you said the sports also help you show you the path to really success.
That's true. Yeah. And the other thing is with teamwork and collaboration, whether it be sports, you also find your individual voice and your individual capabilities. So what do you bring to the table, right? How are you advancing the success of not just your own agenda, but also the agenda and the needs of those around you, right? So how do you do that together? Win together is a great theme. Anytime you can go into a mindset that, you're going to not only advance yourself, but you're also going to create an environment and integrate tools that are going to allow a successful outcome for everyone involved. So
yeah, I mean, as we were just talking about, we went to the middle school a couple of days ago. We talked to all the sixth graders,
awesome.
And something that we were talking to them about was high school is not just a time to learn academically; it's a time to learn about yourself, what you're really good at, and how you can support the community. Yep. The thing we were talking about, ikigai, is one of the things that we use to show them their career path. Ikigai is basically what the world needs, what you're good at, what you love, and what you can be paid for. And it's a combination of all those things is really what a career is. And we really stress to them, high school is a time to find your ikigai, find what you're good at.
Yeah, and I feel like on the topic of the ikigai, it can also not just be for high school. Even if you are not clear on what you want to do in high school, I feel like it can also help you when you're in college and you get out of college, because a major is just something that is suggested. So for what I think is let's say you go into a pre-med major. It doesn't just need to be you have to become a doctor or you have to become a nurse. You can also branch out, go into biomedical engineering, things like that. And I feel just like Saranj said, high school is a time for personal growth, and you do learn a lot about yourself.
That's great point, right? I mean, look, I went to college and I have a bachelor's in psychology, right? And I was fascinated with psychology, and though I didn't become a psychologist for many different reasons, I have to say that the learnings that I did get out of university around psychology really kind of gave me some perspective around how organizations may be structured, how they operate, how to interact with people and listen to people, right? A lot of times as we go through our careers, whether we go through our education, what have you, we always want to be important, right? We always want to bring value in everything that we do. But there's also I think there's a lost art in actually listening, and then absorbing, right? So hearing what people have to say, and then reiterating, right? Kind of making sure that you clearly understand their viewpoint and their position.
Yeah, and one really cool thing, actually. So once we asked one of the sixth graders a question, what do you think the world needs? They said listeners, and I feel knowing that at such a young age is a really cool thing.
I don't think I was that mature when I was a sixth grader.
I wasn't. It sounds like a visionary. Awesome.
It was cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
Me and Trace are actually talking about the journey that we've had in high school so far. I mean, we're still learning about ourselves. We're juniors in high school currently. I mean, it's a really tough time right now. A lot of school stress, a lot of extracurricular stress. But we talked about Trace has a little better understanding about this, but what we did in freshman year, what we did in sophomore year.
Yeah. So in freshman year, we started off with it was mostly exploring. And not exploring academics. It's mostly just exploring the school, seeing what you like, what you don't like. It's a time to feel if you're best suitable in that environment. And then sophomore year is when you actually start growing. It's when you start learning about a lot of different things. And for me and Saranj, I think it was kind of the same. We did a lot of different clubs. We did FBLA, Model UN.
Excellent.
And these are just they're competitions basically. And they helped me a lot because I actually in freshman and sophomore year, I was able able to find my passion, because over the years of middle school, elementary school, I always wanted to be like a scientist.
Yeah.
And then after like going into freshman year and seeing biology, I was like, maybe this is not my jam. And so I kind of like pivoted as well.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I always liked public speaking and talking, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I mean, after joining Model United Nations my freshman year, unfortunately, I wasn't able to go on the trip because I got COVID a little bit before it.
Yeah.
But I
Just
really
a little bit, right?
Yeah, just I loved it, and it's helped me shape my career goal. For now, I want to be a lawyer, but let's see where it goes.
Okay. Yeah. So you should talk to my wife. She's a lawyer. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So that's it's interesting. I will say that that to have clarity of thought of what you want to be at this stage right now. I mean, if you truly have a passion, right, it's easy for you now to start planning and building that roadmap, right, that pathway.
Yeah.
But also understand that when you get into college or when you get out of high school, right. It's a great opportunity to really expose yourself to so many other things. Like you said, you started high school and you were freshman year, you're kind of learning the lay of the land, right?
Yeah.
And then sophomore year, you're like, oh, I think I kind of know where I want to go. And now you're like, oh, maybe I want to go somewhere else, right? And that's okay. I think a lot of kids, when I was a kid, and now, you think you need to have all the answers, and that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. And I don't know that it's necessary. I think that you both have shown that you're high achievers, right? I mean, look at where we are right now, right?
Thank you.
But take that forward, right? So have that confidence, and don't be apprehensive to understanding and learning more about other areas.
Yeah, and I feel like passion is a really big point. And I wanted to ask, like, how did you shift that passion into your first job out of college?
Yeah. So I was I'm not going to say unique. I worked pretty much full time all through college. So when I started college, I would like to say my first semester was a scratch. It didn't count. And I quickly pivoted. So I went away to school for a semester and came back home. Kind of learned how to really be the student that I needed to be and take school seriously. But it also put me in a position where I worked. So I actually started in banking while I was in college, going to Montclair State. And when I was in banking, I had some clients that were in the staffing industry. I'm a social butterfly and I'm a social creature. And so when asked what I wanted to do after college, I said, well, I'm a psych major. I'm not sure if I want to go get my master's or if I want to jump into the workforce full time. And I was given an opportunity to get into the staffing industry. And so really while I was in college and then jumping out of college, I already had an established career in the staffing industry with a company called Kelly Services. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit more about what the staffing industry entails? Because I don't know if many of our
Yeah. So when you look at companies, obviously they all have employees, right? And they're full-time employees,
right?
And generally, those companies will have an internal recruiting organization that goes out and they'll recruit for their full-time employees. But there's also another side of employment, which is temporary labor, temporary staff. Okay. And then temporary staff is generally they're contractors that come in and they will work for a particular client, but they're employed by a staffing agency. Oh, okay. So I worked in staffing with contracts with large global enterprise companies, and I provided staffing services for them. Yeah.
Okay. And so how did you shift the staffing experience into the talent management at Cielo right now?
Yeah. So I was fortunate at the time. It was the beginning of this is 20 years ago. The shift into what the industry calls managed service programs, which are sort of a solution in between staffing and indirect procurement and HR services. And so I was at the forefront of that. And so I came up sort of helping to build and support a new business model that I implemented and became sort of the standard, the MSP model standard across the industry. So basically thinking of if a company spends $1 billion a year in temporary labor, the MSP actually facilitates that entire process. So I jumped into operations, solved an ever-changing dynamic and an emerging solution, an emerging market, which really sort of opened the doors for me to lead large operational teams and business development teams on a global scale. So this shifted me into a lot of United miles across the globe, and has awarded me the opportunity to go to Singapore and Tokyo and Australia and Latin America and everywhere. Yes, I've been all through Europe, so it's been a great run. Yeah.
Yeah, that is what actually, I mean, that is really cool. We were talking with our last guest a little bit about like, what was I gonna say? Like finding like an emerging market, as you said, like finding a market where you can really thrive in.
Yep.
And it's like, you don't have to go down the normal route, right? There's so many, like, I don't think I've ever met anyone that's ever worked in talent management except for you. And I think it's so interesting. It's not the usual, right? And I think finding that market is really important.
Yeah, you know, so there's an evolution that happens, right? So, you know, now with Cielo, I'm in a space that specializes in recruitment process outsourcing, right?
Okay.
So it really rounds me out from what I call like a workforce solutions expert, where I understand now the outsourcing space for BPOs. If you're looking at life sciences and pharmaceuticals, I understand the CRO and CRA space and how drugs are developed and go through clinical trials and so on and so forth, because the companies that I worked for have supported those life cycles, right? But now I'm on the side of focusing on the recruitment of full-time employment for the clients that we have at Cielo, which again, one of the global leaders in the RPO space. So it's allowed me to evolve into a multitude of different talent solutions, dependent on the pathway of talent getting into a particular company.
Okay. Yeah, so you do work with a lot of careers then, because it's a lot of people that are coming into jobs. And I wanted to like see how you can manage like turnover and like what that is like, what that entails really.
So when you say manage turnover, you mean how do companies manage turnover?
Yeah, sorry, how do companies manage turnover?
So there's generally right now we're seeing an all-time low in attrition rates right now. So attrition generally is when people will leave their employment of a particular company, right? And we've seen rates that have been as high as 12, 14%, but right now we're seeing like 5, 7%. And that's because right now I think people are sort of waiting to see what's going to happen, right? And so we just went from the great resignation that we talked about in the industry, where people were leaving their jobs a couple of years ago because there was so much opportunity out there, to the great hesitation, which is really them kind of, whoa, let me see what's going to happen before I make my next move. From a retention standpoint, companies really need to look at what they're offering their employees. So from an early career standpoint, looking at what is the career development, career pathway afforded to young people entering the workforce and working for that particular company. What's important to them, right? So what was important to me when I entered the workforce is going to be completely different to what's important to you.
That's true.
There's a lot more interest in flexibility, right? With Gen Alpha coming in and now right behind you guys, or actually I think you're part of Gen Alpha now. So how do you want to work, right? So the talent out there really sort of dictates how companies need to engage with them. And I think you, as coming into the workforce in the next few years, I think you're going to see a rapidly changing landscape that technology is going to really drive. I was also reading like a couple articles, and it said like that the job market for I think computer science is really saturated. And I wanted to like see how like why do they become saturated and stuff like that. So there's interesting that you read that. We're actually seeing a bit of a challenge in getting the talent right now out of the universities, right? So at least here in the States, the STEM positions are still in high demand. So going through the universities, I think there's, I'm glad to see that, there's a larger representation going through the universities right now, because that means there'll be a stronger talent pool coming out of the universities, right? When we really need it here in the States. But I don't know that I've seen enough volume enough of resources in that talent pipeline to meet the actual demand of the companies. So there still is a talent gap. that companies really need to be aware of. And so going back to attrition, it's how do you hold on to that knowledge share, right? How do you entice people not to leave and bring all of that knowledge, awareness, and content and capability and take it to a competitor? But also, how do you build the talent? So you're seeing a lot of companies that are trying to figure out what skill sets, especially around STEM, are going to be needed moving forward, and what can they actually train and develop internally versus having to recruit for. So,
yeah. Okay. I was just thinking while you were saying that, like, a lot of people think that they can just get into the best university and then suddenly their talent will come with them. Right. A lot of the people in my school have this idea that, like, oh, if I get into UPenn Wharton, I'm going to make so much money working in business. I'm going to make so much money working in, like, comp sci. And it's like, once you get into that school, it's not over. You have to find opportunities from there and then go out. Our last guest, Mr. Rosenberg, as I mentioned him before, he was talking about how I believe his nephew, he went to, was it the University of
Delaware?
Okay. Yeah, right? Cool. And University of Delaware, while not the most prestigious school in the world, it had the opportunities he was looking for in his industry. And that's what's really important to finding, like, what can I do outside of college? Because eventually the goal is to make money, right? And you're not going to find that money by just going to Wharton.
That's true. Look, you have to have some control over your destiny, right? So, and there's multiple ways that you can go about that. Obviously, internships are important. Going to the right school is important. Right. I hear a lot of talk now that college isn't that important anymore. Yeah. I'm sort of on the fence on that right now. I think in some areas, you really depends on what you want to do, right? There's going to be a big focus on, and we're going to get to a point where it's about readily available skills versus potentially readily available experience, and so that's great for the early career dynamic, because obviously coming out of university you're limited on your experience, right? Mm-hmm. But you may have the necessary skills to help a company evolve into what's next. And so bringing that awareness, I love the tools that are out there now with social media, making the having the ability to actually own your message, right? And not just rely on a resume or so on and so forth. Yeah. Start building a networking approach and strategy.
Yeah. So you were talking about the internships, and also, like, how do you, like, approach getting an internship when you're in college? Because, again, you were talking about work experience and also, like, skill experience. And I feel like both of them are really important to getting, like, a job later. So I feel like internships do have, like, a really big portion in that.
Yeah. So obviously you can apply for internships. When you're in college, you can go to your student advocacy, student hall. They'll actually help you with understanding which companies may be looking for students for internships. You'll find that you should do your research as to which companies you want to go after, because very often they will reach out to the universities themselves as well, right? So they have strategies and early career programs to identify which talent they want from which universities, and they try to get you in as well. So one of it is proactively reaching out to the companies and understanding their strategy, but also working with your college and your college advisors to get associated with the internship programs there.
Okay. Yeah, and you were saying, like, before that people don't think college is that important anymore, but I think if you do lose track of your, like, academic pursuits by saying, oh, college isn't that important, I'll just get through it and I should be fine. I think even if college is not the most important thing for your major, for example, for law school, like, your undergrad may not be the most important in deciding what law school you go to. It's mostly, like, the LSATs and things like that. I think if you don't keep your goal in mind and you don't work for that goal in your undergrad, it's not just going to magically appear in your postgrad. You're not going to suddenly develop the studying habits that you need.
Right.
So I think you need to pay attention in literally every aspect of your life, even in high school right now. I'll admit I wasn't the most locked in my freshman year, but I figured it out eventually. And I think it's important that I figure it out now rather than when it's my first year, I'm looking for the job.
Yeah. And you see, like, people talking about goals and, like, one new thing, I mean, not new, but it's been around for a really long time, but New Year's resolutions, people say, yeah, I'm gonna go to the gym from this starting this year, and it's so like vague, and you don't really have like that, oh, this is the goal I actually want to reach, these are the different steps, things like that. So what is some of your advice on like creating those goals and, you know, trying to achieve them?
So anytime you're setting goals, right, goals and objectives, you really need to, one, be clear on your intention, right? Everything when managing or establishing and managing two goals should be driven off of intention, because if you don't have the appropriate intention, it's very easy for you to lose sight of the goals that you're trying to achieve, and you start to deprioritize them. So going in with intention is always key and top of mind when I think about that, right? Understand though that when you're setting goals and establishing goals, you're trying to get to an end state, right? And so you may have put together a plan, a path to achieving those goals, but understand that you may need to pivot. You may need to change how to get to those goals, but it doesn't change the fact that you have the intention to get to that goal. So understand you may need some flexibility, but you're going to get there as long as you don't lose sight.
I think that is a unique take on it. I think it's really cool that you think that way. And just going back to your job a little bit, you work in the talent industry, and like you said, you travel to all these different countries, and you've been so many places, and you're obviously probably a really busy man. How do you balance that with, you know, your family and your home life and doing the things that you love at the same time?
So I've been really fortunate to work for some great companies, that Cielo included, where you know, work-life balance is important. You know, I do think that where we are as a culture in the workforce, being so connected, that work actually becomes very integrated with our personal lives. So the lines have kind of blurred a bit at this point. That's true. But what that also does is it gives you a little bit more flexibility during your day, so that if you need to take care of business or if you need to take some time, it's sort of there's a trade-off bartering system that happens where, you know, you may be working hours that maybe you normally wouldn't, but you also have a lot more flexibility in today's workforce, depending on the industry. And that's important, right? You know, being able to go to a track meet and watch your son run, or you know, a basketball game, or go cheer on Monroe, you know, soccer. You know, this is, you know, to have that flexibility. You know, there's a lot of parents in those stands, and I think it's because, you know, we've gotten to a point as a society where there's just an appreciation of work-life balance.
Yeah, I feel like work-life balance is a really important thing, and we were like stressing that to the people younger than us as well, because like just like me and Saransh, we're in junior year. It's the most academically grueling year, I'd say, and it's really hard actually. And I found it since the beginning of this year, where it's like you're bombarded with like everything. There's a test in every class every other day, and somehow somebody comes up with like 3 projects the next day, and it's just like, oh, okay,
wait,
so
what?
I need to take like a little break and like start planning myself out. Planning myself out. And
do you still play basketball, by the way?
No, I'll go out and shoot. I actually went out Adam took me to the rec center probably a year ago. I thought I was going to die. Everyone's just faster than me. And, you know, all I can do is just kind of hold my weight, and that's it. So, yeah, but good question. Thanks. Yeah, I always have the intention of getting on the basketball court, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah,
so,
but I mean, that's okay, because I haven't played basketball in some time as well, and I really need to get back into it.
It's a great sport.
Sure, I started playing soccer a couple weeks ago.
Oh my God, terrible. I'd never touched a soccer ball in my life, and
Really?
I remember
so fun.
I went out with Saransh and a couple of friends, and that was the most tragic experience
Really?
ever.
Was that bad, huh?
I could use my speed, but
Nothing else.
Nothing else.
But yeah, it's really important to have this balance. I think as you said, we were talking to 6th graders about it. Like, when I get home, I have all this work that I need to do, and honestly, as you know, we get iPads in our high school, right? And I have this app on my iPad. It's called My Homework, and it literally balances everything for me. I can see, like, in red is like the critical things that I need to get done, and orange is like, you know, I can wait, and then, you know, things like that. And I think being organized is really important, because it also allows you to have balance, because time management, I think, is a precursor to balance. Because if you think like, oh my God, I'm going to get home at 3, but I literally have to work until 11. Well, maybe you shouldn't have put off those work for the last 2 days.
That's right. So
I'm guilty of that.
I'm guilty of that too. Sometimes.
Procrastination, right? You know, it creates probably undue stress for all of us. I'm guilty, right? And it's something that I, throughout my career, have had to become aware of, right? Because, you know, there's a lot of creativity in all of us, right? And we all have this intention to get everything done and succeed. But we make things harder for ourselves, and we create undue stress when we continue to procrastinate and delay. And honestly, once you get started, it's always amazing to me. Once you finish whatever it was that you hadn't gotten started on that we were procrastinating about, like once you're finished, you're like, wow, that wasn't that difficult. Why didn't I start earlier? So I try to do as much as I can, in the moment as soon as it comes through, free up my time, because like you said, you're getting another assignment, another project you have to work on, right? And so having the organizational skills and just keeping that clean just really helps you to flow better, right? And be in the moment and achieve.
Staying in the moment is really important. I think if you're too worried about your future, or you're too worried about the past, in the past you can't change the past.
That's right.
So it's like, why not just like be focused on where you are now? Maybe try not to make those mistakes again. But even if you do, it's like, it's not that big of a problem, to be honest. There's very few things you can do in high school that will negatively affect your future career. And I think the number one thing is like, just be where you are. Obviously care about your future, like stay focused, but I don't know.
Like, be yourself, and just like all these things. That's where it's like, keep your personality in check, talk to people, and create connections, foster relationships, just things like that.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, I was driving over here, if I could talk to myself, my earlier self when I first started, going through college, or even definitely getting into the workforce, and being your authentic self is so important. Having a voice, and it's important to find a culture, a company culture that allows you to do that, right? Now, don't get me wrong, everyone has to find their place. How do you fit into that culture? But to work for companies that celebrate the diversity and the uniqueness that we all bring. I think that's really important. So
I think the teachers that I've made the best connections with are the ones that I've been myself around, not the ones that have like, obviously, of course, those teachers, even those that I've been myself around, they do give me a lot of work, right? But it's like, it's not just that they give me work and I just can't, I can't be myself around them. It's like, I try showing themselves as much of like what I do as possible. And then that really gets you to like understand them, because obviously, your son is going to go to the college application process soon. We do have to get teacher recommendations, right? And and I think building connections with the teachers is not just for the rec letter, right? It's also for like the opportunities that they can give you. Honestly, my our sophomore year pre-calc teacher, I walked into class and I realized, I've known this guy since I was 5 years old, because he's my goalie coach actually. He's been my goalkeeper coach, right? And it's like, I already have a connection with him. Why not make that connection deeper? And he's hopefully one of the kind of person I'll be asking for my rec letter. So.
And it was like different for me because I didn't really know him like that, but like throughout the year we had a lot of fun moments and stuff.
Do a shout out real quick. You want to do a shout out?
Mr. Rock to Shell.
Let's go.
Great guy.
He has him right now, actually.
Good.
He has him right now. It's we love Mr. Rock.
So you hit on an interesting point. So having those connections, right, are actually serving you, right? So you're being your authentic self.
Exactly.
They understand who you are. You understand them, and so the efficiency of communication and the outputs that you're achieving are that much better, right? That much quicker, right? You're actually in the flow, right? You're in the moment, and that's fantastic. But you're also developing, I would say, and I think this is extremely important, mentors. So mentorship, whether you're going through college, and you're probably going to have college mentors that help you, whether they're professors, other students. This will continue. This is something that I strongly recommend continue to focus on as you go through life. So I'll stop there with just the preface to say, establishing the right mentorships. It's extremely rewarding for the person who's doing the mentoring, and you'd be surprised at how the levels that you can achieve through the guidance of some of these mentors.
And Saranj was talking about, I think we were like formulating an idea for the presentation.
I was literally going to talk about
FormuLATTE. and then so we were talking
about this.
And then we were talking about how like teachers are one of the most important people, and it's not just teachers, just like you're saying, it's mentors as well. And Saranj gave me this really cool analogy where it's like, imagine he's a 70-year-old man and I'm a 30-year-old man trying to get into investment banking, and he's already had like 40 years of experience. It's definitely very helpful to have like people like that around that can guide you through some of the like niche aspects of it. Do you
remember when I talked about Ikigai, like the 4 things?
Yes.
It's like when we were presenting to the middle schoolers like what the world needs,
Yeah.
I was talking about what I think the world needs are teachers, and I pointed to the school teachers, and I was like, it's not just the school teachers, although they're great, right? But it's like you can be a teacher in literally everything.
Couldn't agree more.
Exactly, and I think being a teacher is passing down knowledge, and that's what FormuLATTE is all about. Is like we get knowledge from people like you who are obviously we're very grateful that you're more than willing to give it, and we're seeing all these diverse career paths, and it's amazing.
Yeah, well, my hat goes off to you. I mean, if I was wearing a hat, but, I'm just getting to know you, man. I have to say, I'm proud of both of you.
Thank you so much,
and everyone involved, because this is just amazing. I think you're making a difference, and just the way you were talking about presenting to the middle school. I mean, think about the seeds that you just planted, right? And now they're going to take that and what they're going to do, right? How you've affected a positive result that's going to sort of be realized down the road.
Let's hope they procrastinate less than me and Shreyas.
There you go.
And a lot of them actually, like, they came up to both me and Sriracha, and they were talking about, I wanted to do drop shipping. Can you give me some advice on it? Can you give me some advice on it?
Drop shipping, and we were like, you're just in 6th grade. Let's take it one step at a time.
But they were really cool. They came up to us, asked a lot of like really good questions, and I feel like it was very engaging.
We had a Q&A session at the end if we had time for a couple of the sessions. We did 4 sessions in total. Trust me, one of the most grueling things that I've ever done. It's so long. It was 50 minutes per presentation.
Yeah, wow.
It was terrible.
But it was really fun. I feel like it became really interactive.
How do you feel about presenting? I mean,
I love
I love presenting as well.
Comfortable. Naturally.
I like it because it's like I get to give people my perspective on things. It's definitely good to listen and creating a different understanding. It's like the teaching in school a lot, and I feel like we had a AP Lang prompt on this to write an essay or something, and it's about like critical thinking, and critical thinking only happens if you're able to understand a perspective, and so that's like it's really cool
listening, right? Yes, that's right.
I mean, I think that's a great ending.
It's a great ending. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being on our podcast.
It was
amazing.
I'm truly honored, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It was a really great episode, honestly. I really enjoyed today.
Good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Bye. Brewing success,
one sip at a time.